bring you the latest in gaming news, indie reviews, and everything else under the sun. My name is Kendall, and I'm here with my co-host.
Tony, aka Never Optimistic Prime.
Oh my God. I mean, it's a huge stretch, but I appreciate it though. Nah, that was
Yeah. Had to
that
do some
one
yoga
out.
for that one.
Yeah, that was inspired though. That was inspired. Like, okay, all right, I give you a pass for that one. Well, welcome back, folks. Y'all know what to expect by now. We are back again for yet another episode. The week of November 20th. I can't believe how fast this year is flying by, man.
Oh,
Like,
November just started like 2 minutes ago.
I literally, bro. Like, I'm like, where did this month go? And it's just like this how the whole year's been. I guess this is life now, you know. But we're gonna keep it rolling right along. Somehow we barreled right along and got to the Game Awards damn near. Like that's a couple weeks away, and we actually have the nominees. But of course, there's a little controversy there. You know what I mean? So I did want to kind of touch on that. What games got nominated for Game of the Year and what got left off. But that'll kind of tie into our greater theme today, which is just games that have been overlooked in general. Games in history that we feel like could have been major hits or even just bigger than what they were, even if they were hits already. Like things that we feel like could have taken that step into the stratosphere. But before we get into that, because I know I got a nice little list and some shit I really want to talk about. This is like one of my favorite topics. I do want to touch on this Game of the Year situation. So obviously, like I said, we got the nominees. We got the announcement on Life of Pablo cover art aesthetic. I don't know why they chose that
Yeah,
shit.
that was very weird. And it's like blatant peach where it's like that's the
Specific.
first thing that you come to mind with is why did they get Kanye to get in on this?
Why? Was this just so timely? That album is popping and Kanye is in such good graces. It all just lines up, right? I don't understand
I
it. But
don't know.
anyway,
I must have been one of the few people that didn't really fuck with that album, but that's a
nah,
conversation for another.
yeah, that is. Everything I just said is a conversation for another day. I'm just joking around. Shout out to the Game Awards. I'm extremely excited. The Game Awards were always going to be divisive with the Game of the Year this year because, like I've been saying, it's an honor to be nominated this year. Like that means that you stood out among some of the best games that have ever been released. Like full stop. It's been crazy, and we've talked about it damn near every episode. So yeah, I know what it is. But I want to run through the list of games that actually got nominated. Let me see. I gotta actually pull that up. I forgot to get
Oh,
that.
I got it up. I got it up.
Bad. Okay.
So first on the list is Alan Wake 2, which like literally just dropped. So that should
Yeah,
probably tell you just how fire that shit is. That it just came out and niggas was like, nah, this need to be on the list.
man. And that's all I've been hearing since it dropped. Like, oh yeah, we got another one, another sneaky little Game of the Year contender. Man,
Yeah.
I haven't played it, but yeah,
Yeah, I'm gonna get around to it at some point. Next,
absolutely.
Baldur's Gate 3, which I feel like was an obvious pick just based on how it kind of blew the doors off of everything when it
Yeah,
dropped.
absolutely.
Spider-Man 2, of course,
Of
which
course.
we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll talk
Uh,
about all these for a second.
Resident Evil 4, which is the one that is the most surprising to me,
Yeah,
only because it's a remake.
right.
Like that, I don't know if that necessarily speaks to like what they were looking for, but it says something about the quality of the damn game that a remake got in, and some of the other
100%.
shit we're gonna talk about didn't get in.
Man, yes, absolutely.
Super Mario Brothers Wonder again just fucking dropped,
Yeah,
but you ain't heard nothing but good things.
man,
And Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom, which I mean, for my
obviously.
money, that's the one.
Yeah, I mean, I went back and like booted up Tears of the Kingdom for the first time in a long time. Yesterday, actually. Like I hadn't played it in months just because when I played it, I put like 200 plus hours in. I steamrolled that fucking game. But somehow I still have like 20 shrines, so I was like, let me boot it up and just play it again. And it's just as fucking incredible as it was like when I
It's
played it. It
like
just
Patrick Mahomes putting on his underwear for the 700th time.
literally like, yep, still lucky. It's crazy.
Yep,
It's still going, but it really
nasty.
does feel like that. Yeah, that shit's gross. Like you gotta. I know you were joking. You were on New Heights, and I've seen my man on New Heights. He's a funny guy. Like he was definitely fucking around, but still, don't play around like that, bro. Don't. You're gonna have these young athletes. You see how Steph
You know
got
how
everybody,
superstitious athletes is, man.
and you are the Steph Curry of the NFL. Steph got everybody
Yeah,
jacking crazy threes, doing this shit to their opponents. don't have everybody rocking the same draws all fucking career. Like, please, you gotta check.
Right.
If I believed that the Eagles would win the Super Bowl every time I did that, I'd do it. And that's please don't stop me on this path. In any case, we talking about Zelda, and
I don't want it that bad, bro. I don't want it that bad.
I
I
mean,
got
I
my
don't know
one.
if
I
I'm,
don't need another one.
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't need another one.
I don't know if I'm crabs desperate for a ring. I don't know if I'm quite there yet, but that's a wild statement. We're
Yeah, it
talking
is.
about Zelda. We're talking about Zelda. So, Tears of the Kingdom obviously was going to get nominated. Like that's one of the highlights. A lot of people feel like we're biased, and maybe we are. Like the so-called Tears of the Kingdom coalition
Look,
was always
let me
picking that
stop you
game.
right there. Let me stop you right there. A lot of people feel like we biased. Guess what, motherfucker? Yes.
Like I said, we
Yes.
are. Yeah, like we listen. This game is everything it was supposed to be, and that's all you need to say. Like it's one of the most storied gaming franchises ever. Just like completely, just at the one of the Mount Rushmore candidates of gaming, and it's the arguably the best entry in the series. You know what I mean? Like, what are we? What do you want? What do you want us to do, man? Like, if it doesn't get nominated, it's going to be a year where we talk about how it didn't get nominated. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. It is, and like Baldur's Gate 3 could win Game of the Year.
yeah,
If Zelda didn't get nominated, we're still looking at that funny because it's like, how?
right, right. You
Like with
didn't
Zelda on the list, if Baldur's Gate 3 win it, I'm cool.
right, 100.
But it's
percent
gotta
This is
be there.
it's a God of War, Elden Ring situation. You know what I mean? Where
Yeah.
Ragnarok
Like
went up
as
against
long as they there, it's cool. But if they not
right,
there, I got a problem.
exactly. So speaking of Baldur's Gate 3, a lot of people actually see a little bias in that too because it's the anti-Zelda choice. You know what I mean? This is the quote unquote real gamer choice. Like that's the CRPG. You know what I mean? It's the people's choice almost, the underdog in the fight that's just that good that it absolutely deserves to be there. So you can't argue against it. Just like, you can't really argue that Zelda's a bad game. Like, it ain't bringing me down from a 10 out of 10 on that shit. But same is true for Baldur's Gate. So that's a knockdown, drag out fight. Like, that's going to be very interesting to see who they. I kind of feel like the Game Awards will lean toward Baldur's Gate. I don't know why, but I just have a weird feeling.
I
Um,
mean, the issue is that, like you said, it's that argument of the quote unquote real gamers game. And I'm like, first of all, motherfucker, we all nerds.
yes,
It's all the same nerd shit. Like it's
it
just all the
really
same
is.
nerds. Why y'all try and gatekeep something that's stupid?
Different
You
package,
know,
Yeah,
and especially when you consider that like Zelda been around for almost 40 fucking years.
yeah,
You know what I
yes.
mean? Like it ain't
Series is older than me,
this ain't Just Dance.
right?
Like
Right.
you
We're
talk
not
about a
out
series
here.
that pioneered 3D gaming.
It's not even like a Madden or something. Like it's not even like
Yeah,
a
man. Like,
so
nah, this is everything on here is
yeah,
nerd shit.
yeah. It all deserves it. And that makes the conversation very interesting. Obviously, we don't really have to talk too much about Mario deserving to be nominated for Game of the Year because it's a Mario game. Like the quality is inherent once you get to Mario. You know what I mean? Like once you get to that point in the title, you're like, okay, I know what to expect. But I feel like it being a 2D Mario makes it kind of surprising to a lot of people. Like that's something that you kind of look at not as an off brand, but as the old Mario, right? Like that's like almost in the retro style. But I mean, up to this point, because I feel like Wonder is actually that step up. Haven't played a ton of it. I think it absolutely deserves it. But then did that kind of surprise you to see that up there, though? Or were you just like, oh, Mario,
No.
okay?
Because I mean I haven't played it, but I've seen some gameplay of it and I've seen like the reactions and stuff. I think you're right in that people are looking at it like it's old style Mario, so it's kind of weird to be on there. But the fact of the matter is that 2D, 3D, like that shit don't matter. If the game slap, is slap. I mean, Hades
Facts.
probably should have been on a lot more Game of the Year lists. And,
Yeah.
that's a indie roguelike.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know what I mean? Like it don't matter. If the game is fire, put it on the fucking list.
100%. Yep. Absolutely. And it's such a wild year that I know that there's games, and like I said, we'll talk about games that possibly should have made the list, could have made the list for sure. But Mario is a staple. We haven't got a new like 2D Mario in I don't know how long because I stopped counting new Super Mario Brothers games at
Yeah,
some point.
nobody counts them. I mean, I enjoyed them,
Yeah,
because
And I mean,
they
like,
existed, but it wasn't like
yeah,
it wasn't groundbreaking. It didn't shake up the formula, nothing like that. It was
new
just it existed.
New Super Mario Brothers is the Mario alternate reality version of Sonic the Hedgehog 4 if that shit was successful. Like if that shit was a solid Sonic game, I know I just said a hell of a statement.
Yeah, that no, you just said a lot
but
of shit. I didn't
but
like
listen, like think about the sterility of like Sonic 4. Yeah, I know you remember how that joint looked. And it was cool, but if that becomes a franchise, like New Super Mario Brothers when it first came out, looked like the 360 era version of Super Mario Brothers. Like that shit looked like
yeah, I think that's the way to go with that. That's
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And like that's what Sonic 4 was supposed to be. And it had that same like almost lifeless behind the eyes feel that Sonic 4 had. Like if Sonic 4 made it more than two games, it would have kind of just kept that art style and felt like that's it. They would have been
Oh,
switching
that's
up the
right. They
worlds.
dropped that shit episode 1 and was going to do it too,
Yeah.
and everybody
They
was like,
did.
no.
They did drop two. They dropped
They
two,
dropped
but
2?
then
Oh, I
yeah, they
stopped playing
stopped
after
after
1.
that. Yeah. Oh
Yeah, that's
yeah,
right.
everyone did. That's why you forgot about it. But and then I think that game came around out around the time of Sonic Colors, which was good. So fuck that game.
Was it Colors
um,
or Generation?
it could have been. I think that was that Generations because Generations was great. Like I'll give
Yeah,
Generations great.
Generations was fire.
Yeah. I don't know. Either way, you know what I mean. Like we were not looking at Sonic 4, but I feel like Sonic 4
No.
was earlier because that was definitely 360 like Xbox arcade shit. Um,
Oh, yeah, yeah, you're right.
but again, you see how forgettable this is. That's New Super Mario Brothers. If that's not a Nintendo game, there's an inherent quality, but that game was sterile as hell. Like I really liked them. Don't get me wrong. I know I'm talking a lot of shit. They're really good games, but there's like something lacking to the pop, the way they pop. And Super Mario Wonder just fixes all that shit. Like it was almost the intention of that game. So definitely deserving of the spot. Um, let's see, Spider Man. Like we both been playing. We've been talking
Oh,
about Spider Man as you've been playing it.
yeah, yeah. Because I'm like, I'm what I'm assuming is halfway through,
Yeah, yes,
and like, what I told you where I got today before I
yeah,
had to stop.
yep. Well, we can say that
Dog,
he's in the game. He got to Venom,
yeah,
so like yeah,
yeah, yes, yeah.
yeah,
We got to
yeah.
Venom, and I had like a brief moment where I was like, "Game of the
Man, I
year."
swear
The
to
way
God.
that story plays out up to that
Yes,
point,
yes.
dog.
It's an all timer for sure. Like
I mean, whatever's coming on the back end of this got to hit because
it
everything was hitting before that.
you got some moments ahead of you, man. Like I'm telling that game, it crescendos in a really nice way. Like the way the things go at the end is crazy. That is definitely one of those games that deserves a spot. And a lot of times those games we kind of slept on. Like I don't know how I know like Arkham City was really well received, but I don't know if even that game got the love on the game of the year prestigious title side of the game industry just because it's like a licensed superhero game. You know what I mean? Like sometimes
See,
that comes with
I think the
yeah,
tough thing about Arkham City was the story was good, but the story didn't hit. Like the ending is what made the story.
right. Yeah.
Like with
That's
Spider-Man 2, it's the entirety of that first half.
yeah. With
There ain't nothing that don't hit.
Arkham City had a lot of build up with Hugo Strange and all the stuff that was going on. Yeah, yeah.
Right,
So
but it didn't land, and he almost didn't matter. Like the
right.
only thing that mattered was shit. The Joker is dead.
Yeah, like the
Like
major
that was it.
punches. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was it.
But still fire game, fire like open
Still
world. And
incredible game. Fuck them Riddler puzzles though. They went a little too heavy with that. They
they
went a little
went
too
way
hard with
too.
that.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like Arkham Knight even was probably a little I mean it was better, but
They toned it
um
down a little bit.
yeah, yeah,
But yeah, Arkham City was wild.
yeah. But Spider-Man has perfect side missions. Like it's such a 10 out of 10 to me. Like all these games are 10 out of 10 to me. I haven't played Resident Evil, admittedly, but everything up here I've played, or Alan Wake, everything up here I've played, I would say I wouldn't argue with you if you told me like this is exactly what I would want from this. I can't imagine how I would change Spider-Man 2, frankly.
I mean, you know
Just
how I would change it.
there's
Yeah.
there's
I told you I lined all that shit up,
yeah,
but
there's
yeah.
story beats that could be, altered based on personal taste and like you know what I mean, how you
Yeah.
want that shit to play out. But
But I still love the way it played out to this point. So
it's
it ain't like I got
man,
beef with it.
it is hard to do a good Venom story, man. Like that is a hard character to
Man,
get right, and they got it right. I'm gonna just say that straight up. So you know,
Tom
also
Hardy
deserve
deserved
him.
better.
Yeah, yeah.
He deserved better.
It'd be like that, you know what I mean? But so we got through what 4 of them so far. Alan Wake 2, like we said, we haven't played it yet. Hear nothing but amazing things. And then Resident Evil 4 is an interesting one. And this is I want to transition to some of the games we got that got left off because there's a fascinating conversation to be had about Resident Evil 4 and the reason I wasn't even thinking about Dead Space. Because Dead Space came out this year, man. Like
Yeah.
nobody remembers that shit. It was like January. But that's an amazing video game. And it came out this year. And it's also a remake like of a survival horror game. So I feel like it's interesting.
I think at least for those two games, what puts Resident Evil 4 over Dead Space is the original Dead Space was great,
Mm-hmm.
but the original Resident Evil 4 was a fucking classic. Like talking about
That's
change
facts.
the entire trajectory of a franchise.
Yeah.
So you remake a classic and the shit's just as good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's
That's
not like they
facts.
just slapped a fresh coat of paint on it.
And it's like Dead Space is considered a classic too by a lot of people. I wasn't like into it back then, but I love the new one. Like it's like now, so now I'm into the series. But they're classics in different ways to where, like you said, Resident Evil 4 was revolutionary. I'll go a step further, even just to argue against my own goddamn point, but I'll go a step further and say Resident Evil 4 stands out to me because it changes what made Resident Evil 4 great in the first place in a way that people kind of wanted. Like it introduces a little bit more heart. Again, from what all this is secondhand because I haven't gotten a chance to try it yet. But in the same way, I did play Resident Evil 2, and in the same way that game adds to the controls and the environmental stuff and like, you know, Mr. X and all that, Resident Evil 4 seems like it adds to the horror elements. And man, like Resident Evil 4, the original, changed the series, arguably in a bad way. Because
Yeah.
you
It ain't
know
even
what I mean?
arguable.
Like,
It's
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
when we got to 6. 6 was like, is this
Yeah.
even Resident Evil anymore?
And the answer is no, man. Like, I mean, it was just a different type of game. It's cool. I'm not mad at, you know, the things that happened because 7 and 8 have been fired. But 4 kind of brings it more in line with those games in a really interesting way.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it its own classic in my eyes. I mean, potential classic again. Can't say that without touching the damn game, but that definitely made me think because I think Dead Space actually does some similar things to where the first one I didn't get as much into it because partially of the way like it felt the control or whatever. There were some space moments that were kind of weird in Dead Space in the original that they kind of fixed in the remake. And then I think the overall layout of the spaceship was kind of different, or like how you got place to place. Like they made it more of like a Metroidvania where you going back and unlocking stuff.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll say in defense of Dead Space, I've never played a game where the environment scared me more. Like the
Oh no, they got
sound,
atmosphere down.
dude, the sound design in that game and just the lighting and the jump scare. I mean, the jump scares aren't all the time, but it honestly feels like they're not scripted. Like, I mean, some of them are, but them motherfuckers will just pop out on your ass, like on some crazy shit. And you'll hear them scurrying around so they can get away with jump scaring you because they warned you. Because you just
Right.
heard something, you know what I mean? Like, you know, that's your cue to kind of be on alert. So now you want to look at all events, all of everything. It can come from anywhere. It's almost like a prey vibe, and I really appreciate that.
I think the thing with Dead Space is for me is that it's a quality of life remake in a way. Like Resident Evil 4 felt like, no, we're just rebuilding this from the ground up because this is what we're doing with the series right now. So we're rebuilding everything and kind of bringing it into what the current gen is.
Yeah.
So we've rebuilt the game. Dead Space was like, all right, the original is great, but it has some issues that we could fix. And then they fixed them and it made it even better.
Right. That's facts. Take a 9 out of 10 and like take it up a point and a half to a point versus taking a 10 out of 10 and revamping it so it's a different type of 10 out of 10 is different. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I feel you. I feel you. I just wanted to give that joint some love because I feel like we ain't talked about that game in like
No,
7 months.
it ain't talked about it since it dropped, and
Yeah, this
it was dope. It was just
that
but like that's I guess that's the other thing that makes it feel like they were just kind of it was a quality of life remake, whereas we're dropping it, it fixes all the issues that you remember from the first one, and
yep.
then that was it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Resident Evil 4 is like it got DLC that people loved. They
Yeah.
said it was amazing.
And I think the other thing is that if Resident Evil 4 remake was the only one of the Resident Evil remakes, I think it's looked at the same way Dead Space is. But now we have the benefit of hindsight going, oh, they're remaking the entire first few.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? That makes sense because Resident Evil 2 was kind of received in this same way. Like, oh, it's a remake. It's amazing, but it's a remake of an already good game, and it just made this quality of life improvement. It was like a pretty good parallel, actually.
Yeah.
When they started doing Dead Space 2 and 3, especially I know people again, I ain't played the
By the
series
time we
back
get to
then.
three,
Yeah, that's when
mm,
you can make that shit from a divisive game to just a banger. And that's
yeah.
when, yeah, we can
If
have a
three
convo.
stays on if three stays on that track, three will be in the game of the year. Whenever it drops, it'll be in the game of the year conversation.
I can appreciate that for sure. All right, so that's one off my list of games that got kind of left out. Did you have anything that you want to throw out there as far as this year that got kind of slept on?
Well, I mean, I think the obvious one
Oh yeah.
for most, and I think the point that you made when we were texting about it is kind of why it's not on the list.
Hmm.
But Starfield,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and what you said was that to some people it's a 10 out of 10 game, and to others it's a 7.
Hmm.
And if
And
you're
that's
there with
valid.
it, yeah, and if you're there with it, it can't be on the list because I think it's good. Just to the time
Yeah.
that I put probably about 5 hours into it. So I mean, I think it's good, but there's also people that say all the same. It's a Bethesda game,
Right.
which
Right.
it is. Like
It
it
is.
don't feel no different. It's if you play Fallout, if you played, Skyrim,
It feels
it's
like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
that. So, I think that's the thing that kind of holds it against it is that some people think Skyrim was a fucking 20 out of 10, and some people thought it was a 7. The people who thought it was a 7 is kind of wrong, but people
Yes.
thought it was a 7. People thought Fallout 4 was, 8 to 9 out of 10,
Hmm.
and some people thought it was a 6. That's the thing with Bethesda games. Like, there's a weird variance no matter what drops.
You have
And
a point.
that's what holds it back in these conversations. So you have the vocal, I don't even want to say minority, but you have that vocal patch of people that's go, no,
Mhm.
this should be fucking on here. Then you got that other one that's going, no, no,
Yeah,
I get it.
yeah. That's a game that came out this year. That's the yeah.
Yeah.
So
And that's why you can't put it on there because everything that's on this list is undeniable.
yeah, that's facts. And so I'm pretty divided because I feel everything that you're saying. Like you're not wrong about and again I made the fucking points. Like I was texting you about this shit. This is it's not wrong. You're not wrong about Bethesda games though. That's an interesting conversation to be had outside of like the classic ones, like the ones that really
Yeah,
set
like
the
New Vegas, you ain't hearing nobody
yeah.
shit on New
Or
Vegas.
or honestly, Fallout 3, or I'm gonna throw Skyrim in there. The people that says a 7 out of 10 just got sick of hearing about it. Or
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
yeah, like
Yeah.
or it's like a style, and the style might not be for you. That's facts. But Starfield, man. So I'm in the camp of people that I put like what 30, 40 hours into the game. I don't even know at this point because I just was playing it at a certain point, and it's like a 9 to me in my eyes, like as far as my experience with it. But that's like I wouldn't say that's like my objective, game journalist view of it. I don't really like taking that type of like objective view of games because this shit is art to me. I always say I'm not a
Yeah.
critic, I'm a
Facts.
connoisseur.
That's
Like
yeah.
I'm not trying to like nitpick it and pick up, oh, well, they could have did better with this. I want to celebrate what they tried to do and how close they got to that. And talk about what the future of that thing can be, how they can build on it. That's like my whole point of talking about games rather than like criticizing and like you know picking out the little narrow things I don't like. With that being said, here's some of the little tiny things I don't like. um, the bases, man. There should have been so much more variety. Honestly, the planets have a really cool variety when it comes to like wildlife and like terrain. You land somewhere and sometimes you really will just sit there and be like, wow, fucking cool thing flying around. Like, what are these creatures? Oh, I'm watching these two animals like fight each other. Oh, there's a base over there that I go to, or like an anti-gravity event on this planet. Just random shit. But if you find a base, and you're about to go attack some people, there's like a handful of them that exist, and you can tell it's gonna be one of the like 5 or 6 every time. Like I found a cryo base on one planet, and then I went like across the solar system and found the same cryo base. And I'm like, I didn't like this shit the first time I did it. Like I mean, it's fun to go through a base and shoot people. You don't need a ton with that to make that fun, but it feels like the base level of what that could be. Like for a game like Starfield, I would have taken a much more condensed solar system with a lot more like variety and uniqueness and concentrated effort into each planet. Like that's my criticism of the game. With that being said, again, I'm having an incredible time with this game. Like there's a universe to explore, and it is fun to explore. Everything I played is a fun time. I'm sick of managing my fucking inventory. That's never fun. I don't know why we're still doing it. But
There's not a single game that has made that an enjoyable experience. Not a one.
Listen, I don't know if y'all felt the vitriol and anger in my voice when I said that shit, but I'm sick of managing my goddamn inventory. I'll hire someone.
I'm
to
sick of weight. No, I don't need weight in a game. Like,
Like,
why are we doing? It's a video game, man. Like,
I'm over here trying to like excavate planets, and I'm like, oh, I can't even pick up this rare ass. Like, I'm finding platinum and shit.
no,
Okay,
fucking cyberpunk, man. You've
man.
got a chrome infused human being who's basically a robot. He can't carry more than 500 pounds. It's a
Bruh,
robot. Like, fuck.
sex. And I
But
mean, like,
whatever.
it makes sense, but come on now. There's just little stuff like that. Like the dialogue in Starfield is really fun. I like the way, those moments where you have to make decisions work because you got to like persuade people, and it gives you like tiered options, like less or more difficult options, and they get you points toward actually persuading them. So you can like pick a 3-point option and try to get them out the way real quick, or even like a 4-point option. Sometimes I got my persuasion up. Sometimes I just be like, man, stop tripping. And he'd be like, okay, you got a point, man. Like, it's kind of cool. Like, it really just works like that. But at the same time, the dialogue is like the same Bethesda. They stop and stare at you, and
Yeah, cameras focus solely on them while they talk to you.
Yeah, it feels so Bethesda, all of it, down to the glitches, which is a good thing and a bad thing. So,
and that's I think part of the reason. Like you said the game's like a 9 to you personally.
mm-hmm.
Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that it's a 9 to everybody.
Right.
Still not making that list because everything on that list is a fucking 10.
You're right. You're not wrong.
Like, even if we just go by the raw number, you know what I'm saying? If we just go by the raw number, it's not making that list because everything else on there is a 10.
Yeah, I did not give it a 10. So yeah, I feel you. And
then you gotta look at like Street Fighter 6.
So that's another one I haven't played yet. And I feel like Street Fighter 6 is getting kind of underrated in a way. Like people are seeing stuff like the story mode stuff and how lackluster and bullshit it is. I think the fighting game, like the actual fighting game behind it, from everything I've heard, is pretty incredible. So I would probably want to play that
improvement from 5.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Sure,
or early 5. We'll say early 5. They got it right late in 5, but huge improvement from like base 5.
Which I'm not mad at. Like that's the goal, but that's also like the bare minimum. Like, nah, but I'm hearing that like it's really fun. It's really that good. Some people prefer it to like the evolution of the gameplay in Street Fighter versus like the evolution of the world of Mortal Kombat, right? Like Mortal Kombat seems like they kind of just rebooted and revamped everything and doing the cameo fighter. So let me not take nothing away from that. That's huge. But Street Fighter feels like maybe it's like the next step in what they've already been doing rather than a reboot, So
yeah.
Kind of a weird
I think, again, I would say you could probably, because I mean that's what, 6 games on the list.
Mm-hmm.
But see, 6 feels like an arbitrary number, so that doesn't feel like a number that they settled on. Like, we're gonna have 6 nominees.
I don't know. I feel it feels nice and like even, and it feels like enough nominees to me. I wouldn't push it beyond that, like or under that for real.
Well, no, I wouldn't go like 10 or nothing like that, but
Yeah.
you trying to fit six in, especially in a year like this. This seems
Mhm.
like an asterisk year for nominee numbers where you go, look, we at least got to get the motherfuckers on there. They ain't got to win it, but they at least should be there.
So what do you think
And
that is a good number that you can stop at before it becomes like, okay, we just threw everybody on this motherfucker?
because I think the game of the year conversation has to be contextual.
Mm,
And I think if you look at this year, you've got at least 8 legitimate candidates.
that's
You
yeah,
got the 6 that's already there. I I would say put Starfield on there.
yeah.
And quite honestly, if it ain't Mortal Kombat, then Street Fighter.
If it's not one of those two, it's Final Fantasy 16. So you definitely got at least
That's
eight.
what I'm saying.
You
So you
definitely got
got
at
it. You
least
got
eight.
at least 8.
Yeah, yeah. I can't be mad at that.
I mean, yeah, you only got one, but the ones that everybody thinks should be on there, if you get 8, you can wiggle through that. You get 6, you making some tough decisions, and then people looking at you funny.
But honestly,
Now
I feel like you need that. I feel like you need that to be that,
you do,
you know.
but the other thing about that is the nomination is almost what counts more than the win, because
Yeah.
only one can win.
Right.
But game of the year in a way is also acknowledging fire.
Yeah. Like these are the games that made it up here.
You
Like,
know, like now when you get to like the small categories like best narrative and stuff like that, best art, that's the stuff that you look at and you try to be a little more specific about.
right, right. Like so the way I'm looking at it right now, all the categories, this is playoffs, right? Like everybody made the playoffs if you made it into the list. And if you win your category best action game, best music, you got a playoff win or two. We can judge wins based on who you beat, how far into the playoffs you got. Game of the year is the Super Bowl, and everybody that made it to Game of the Year made it to the Super Bowl. There's one winner, but all the
One winner,
motherfuckers
but
made it to
look,
the Super Bowl. Yeah,
yeah, only
yeah,
2 teams can make it.
yeah,
So
yeah. In
if
this
you
case,
lose,
six.
yeah, you lost, but you made it to that motherfucker.
Facts, facts. And I again promise I'm not saying this because my team lost in the Super Bowl last year, but that's
We're gonna
facts.
fix
Like
that this year. We're gonna fix
we
that this
are.
year.
I ain't even worry about last year, but it is facts. Like it is true. Like we think about. Well, it's the only reason we talk about the Bengals like we do. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
so, it is. It's like that. But with that being said, like you said, there's a few games that can make this list and stuff we didn't even talk about. I kind of held off, and I feel like I'm a little bit biased in both ways on this one, but Armored Core 6 is an interesting one for me. Because I don't think
Probably could have made the list too.
I think so, man. I really do. I think it's that good. And I think people are looking at it like I don't know why I feel like the narrative around it is that it was not gonna be held in that upper echelon of games, you know? Like it's a pick up
Because
and play.
people
Yeah.
people associated it with Souls games.
Yeah, but at this time, I think Souls games are associated with Game of the Year, like Sekiro. You know what I mean? Elden Ring.
Well, they are in the sense of quality, but when you're talking about gameplay and the game of the year vote,
Yeah,
if you tend to look at the game of the year like nominees, they're very narrative driven,
yeah,
like
that's true.
hardcore narrative driven. And not to say that there wasn't one at AC6,
Right,
but they are very like story based.
right, right. So that's true. And even just like I mean, because the narratives in those games are
With the
heavy.
exception
Like
of Mario Wonder, which
I was not gonna bring it up. I was not gonna mention it, but yeah, the narratives in like Souls games and Armored Core 6 are heavy. But I get that it's like a niche. Like these are all very specific audiences. Armored Core is first. This is I know it gets associated with Souls games, but it's like pretty far from it. Like it's not a Souls game at all. It has a tough boss or two, you know what I mean? But that's about as close as you get. Like the gameplay is such an action game, and that's why it's my choice for like action game of the year. I always thought it should win that category, but
it did get
it's
nominated for it.
yeah, and I think it's gonna clean up. Hopefully there's some good games came out this year. I don't know if we talked about that yet, but yeah, man, I just think it's like these are games that in any other year, like we would hopefully be talking about it. And I don't want Armored Core 6 to go down as FromSoft's side project that only some people play, and we kind of don't pay much attention to it. And nah, this game was actual fire, like for I would recommend Armor Core 6 to people before I recommend they try Souls if they're not too sure on Souls. Like, Armor Core 6 is an easy recommendation to me. So
Armor Core 6 is a game that is dope to everybody that played it, but it'll get its run when the price drops to like $30 and somebody goes, "Oh,
absolutely.
let me get this a shot." And then
Yep.
you're gonna start hearing about that motherfucker more.
Yeah, because you'll put some hours into that game, beat it like multiple times. The story actually goes some interesting ass places. The way that multiple endings are. Getting out your armor core is some of the most like time consuming gameplay I've experienced all year. Where like my armor
I've
cores
seen
are
some of them
dope.
menus, man. I'm looking at that shit like, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know if I got the time for this.
man. I'm gonna try to put the extra effort into this episode and put up the armor core somebody made on Reddit. This Johnny Bravo, because that joint is amazing. Yeah, people getting crazy with
That
this.
actually looks like Johnny Bravo.
It looks like Johnny Bravo. I'm gonna send it to you and I'm gonna try to put it in an episode so that we all can enjoy this moment.
Oh
Because
shit.
that's just incredible. But yeah, no, I
What a
mean,
weird cartoon.
it was a very weird cartoon. It would not fly. That's one thing that probably
I know,
wouldn't fly
you know,
today.
no, I know, I think it would. And the
Then the
only
fact that
reason
he
it would
wasn't, yeah,
is the fact that he always got his comeuppance.
he wasn't, yeah, he wasn't,
Always.
yeah, he wasn't doing the things he was trying to do.
Yeah. Like
So
he was always getting his ass beat behind the shit
yeah,
he was doing and saying. So I think,
I
nah.
I just the only reason I argue against it is because they got my man Pepe Le Pew out the way for doing this sometimes. Like he did
Yeah,
that shit.
but that's he never really got his he was because he was still like
He was a
he
little bit,
still kind of won. Like,
yeah. He was a
you know what I
little,
mean?
little forceful. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he was a little extra with it, you know.
that's true. We don't need to delve down this topic any further.
And he really did lean into a lot of terrible French stereotypes.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Same with there's a few characters. You know what I mean. So we ain't gonna talk about Looney Tunes problematic history.
yeah,
um,
still some classic Bugs Bunny cartoons
there
despite
are.
that. But
And I respect Looney Tunes for putting a warning before where it's like, yeah, we did this horrible thing. We're sorry, but we're leaving it in there so we don't erase the fact that we did this horrible thing. I'm like, yeah, I feel you. I don't really want
yeah.
to see certain episodes, but I feel
No,
that,
look, I'll still watch them. It is what it is because it already happened.
yeah, none of the
But
classics.
there's two Looney Tunes gags that I think are the funniest shits ever. It's Mel Blanc laughing, I mean screaming,
Yep.
best
Yep.
screamer in the history of voice acting,
History.
and
Facts.
my favorite cartoon gag ever is when there's like a baby sleeping and they've got to be quiet, but they keep doing shit that forces them to be loud. So they've got to run like 2 miles away and get the shit out and then come back, but they have to keep doing it for like 3 minutes.
Man,
Favorite cartoon gag ever.
you know
It's
what?
funny every time to me.
That is actual. I've never thought about my favorite Looney Tunes gags, but those are up there. Those are
Yeah,
damn sure up
that's
there.
my favorite one ever.
The scream though, I can hear it quiet right now, just like instantly,
So
instantly. It's crazy. All right, so somehow we got to Looney Tunes, so I'm gonna call that a good transition point because I don't want to get too deep into the episode. I know we kind of rolling right along. I want to talk about games that have been overlooked in general. I know we've been kind of focused on game awards and stuff we didn't see nominated this year. Before we step off that, I do want to give another shout out to Final Fantasy 16. We didn't really talk about it much. Final Fantasy 16 was a banger. Like that game had some real slow moments, but it has some of the peak moments that I experienced this year. If you want epic in your game, you need to play that game. Like, highly recommend. And it could have made this list, but again, some slow moments probably brought it from a 10 to a 9 to me, and that's the barrier entry for this year. So just wanted to get my
yeah.
little piece out there on that. But speaking of games that are top tier that kind of don't get their love, I want to kind of delve into the history. This was Tony's kind of topic that he pitched for the episode in general, and then the Game Award stuff dropped. But games that we really feel like, got overlooked, slept on, games that, we loved that didn't get the shine, that should have been more successful. I got a nice little list. I'm not gonna lie to you, but I'm gonna let you kind of start it off because I started the last one off.
All right. So what's on my list is stuff that like it's kind of like a Bethesda game. Like some people wouldn't necessarily think it's that great. I happen to think it's incredible.
I can fuck with you.
So the game that actually got me started on this track was Sonic 3D Blast.
My guy, I appreciate this one.
I played the shit out of that on Sega
Yeah,
Genesis.
yeah.
I can still remember the fucking theme song. Like that game was so fun. And I mean, it was obviously different and controlled different because Sonic wasn't moving as fast because it was doing this isometric 3D
Right.
attempt. Um, but the gameplay was actually legitimately fun, even having to deal with trying to get all the goddamn flickies and you get hit and the motherfucker spread out and you gotta
Mhm.
go get him again. And it's like that could be annoying occasionally, but it was still a really solid game. And I think the boss battles are some of the best boss battles in the series history.
Mm.
But
Okay.
I like nobody really talks about the game. Like if you go back and you hear people talking about Sonic games, they'll talk about Sonic R. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
they'll talk
Sonic
about
the
Sonic CD.
Fighters. Yep.
Yeah, they'll talk about those games, but Sonic 3D Blast never gets mentioned.
Yeah. And honestly, my memories of that game are very vague, but they are positive. Like I have good memories of running around in that like weird isometric view. Like you said, it has some really unique gameplay elements, and I guess they kind of had to lean a little bit more on like platformer type of stuff. So that brought a different feel to Sonic. Like, not that it's not always a platformer, but speed is the name of the game. You already know what's
Right.
up with Sonic. So you kind of had to slow it down. I still remember how dope it was to like do a loop de loop or like do one of the little like twisting paths in that game or whatever. Like just the
Yeah,
way that
man.
it
Just the
looked.
way, yeah, the way they came
Yeah,
off.
that shit was very cool. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm mad that you gave that little list because my immediate thought was, let me follow this up with Sonic CD. Because man, what a goddamn game! So Sonic CD was my PC Sonic. Like I actually did not have a Genesis, but I had hella Sonic games on PC for whatever reason, including
That's
Sonic
interesting.
R. Yeah, it was a very weird time. I played like Sonic 2 on PC, Vector Man, all that Sega. I had like the Sega Smash Pack, I think 1 and 2, where they had like
Oh, I had
Sonic.
that shit.
Yes, man, fire. Like I played Shining Force 2, bro. Like I'm like young as hell getting introduced to this strategy RPG. It's amazing. But Sonic CD actually has separately from all those. And what an incredible, unique ass Sonic game, man. Like I know it just came out as part of the Sonic Origins pack. So a lot of people are getting to experience it. But that game, like the time travel elements, changing the level and going back or forward, seeing what you did and like how it affects everything, that game was really, really, really special for a Sonic game. And it introduced the best version of Metal Sonic. So I love that.
Yeah, that's a solid one. Um, I'm actually we're gonna just stick right there. Do you remember a Game Boy Advance game called Sonic Battle?
Yes. Oh man. Hell yeah. I do. I forgot all about that game.
That was my shit. I forgot about it until 2 days ago.
That's yeah.
I was in the Discord with the other folks I write with, and they were they literally was I guess came up with on their own obviously after we had already talked about it, but
Mhm.
it was like, what games do you remember that you know really like that people didn't really talk about?
Right.
And somebody started talking about Sonic games, and then it hit me, and I'm like, wait, Sonic Battle. Why does that sound familiar? And I looked it up, and I'm like, oh shit, I remember.
Yeah.
Like I rented that shit like 3 times.
Man, what a
Just it
weirdly
was
good game.
such a strange game
Yeah,
for
it
Game Boy
was.
Advance to be like
It
a
was.
fighter, like a Super Smash Brothers type thing.
Yeah, yeah. Like it was really unique. It had like an original character in there somewhere.
But it was legitimately fun.
It was. But I mean everything Game Boy Sonic was fun for whatever reason. Game Boy
I
Advance.
would I would love to see that get like not even it don't even have to be remade. Port the motherfucker to the Switch or
Right.
something.
Do like a
I would like to see that brought back just for the hell of it.
Sonic Side Quest collection. Put Sonic Battle
Yeah,
in there.
yeah.
It's that Sonic RPG that but the BioWare made that nobody remembers on DS. Throw that bitch in there. Yes, Sonic had an RPG called like Sonic Brotherhood or something, and it was a
I
BioWare game.
definitely don't remember that.
Yeah, I don't think anybody knows that game exists except for me. But yep, that game. Listen, we could dominate this list with Sonic. I've been preaching
Yeah.
Sonic for years, and this is why. Because niggas forget that Sonic had a bunch of good games. Sonic Rush
That's
Adventure,
that's because the ones that
fantastic.
mattered they botched.
That's the problem. Like all the front facing shit. But just go buy the indie albums, man. Stop listening to mainstream shit. Like,
Look, man.
it's some fire out there.
You're not about to Jay-Z me talking about some niggas with my old shit buy my old album. We're not
I
doing
mean,
that.
listen. If he was
Nigga,
dropping,
stop talking about paintings that I can't afford, nigga.
you know what? I'm Lil Wayne and you. Stop complaining about the Carter 3 when the Drought is Over just came out. All right, that's what I'm doing. They got shit on the side. You gotta go get the mixtapes. The albums is trash. It is what it is. But
well, then don't put all your money into the bad shit.
honestly, it's impressive how far this metaphor went and how it still
I know,
fits
right?
both Sonic and
Right?
I'm gonna go ahead and get off the Sonic train though. So the first game that I wrote down on my list, I know it's a classic to a lot of people, but I still genuinely feel like Okami is hella underrated, man. Like,
Yeah, it is.
oh, it's Zelda, you know what I mean? But it's not, and that's the most impressive thing I can say about it. You know, Capcom has made Zelda games in the past. They made, I think they made the Oracle games, and I know they made Minish Cap.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They made
and
Oracle.
so pretty much the Game Boy stuff. But Okami is honest to God, like so much like it's like a midway between like a Wind Waker and like the old school Ocarina of Time vibe. Like there's just something about it that gives you that same sense of like, I love this little world and I'm gonna just go fix everything. And like as I get more power, stuff changes, I can do more. The paintbrush skills are incredible. Still to this day, like just fun to watch, like the sky change because you drew the sun up there or whatever you
Right.
want to do. I'm constantly drawing the sun, constantly making the fucking wind blow because the shapes are similar and that shit is annoying. It just brings me back to that frustration. I miss that frustration. All right. Great game. Honestly. All
All
right.
right.
So yeah, what's
Next on
next?
my list is a platformer that I'm going to come back around and celebrate because I won. I made this happen. Me by myself.
Okay.
Gex.
Yeah. I will give you credit for that because you were the one person pulling for that shit.
I was the only person I know of
Yeah.
that was asking for that fucking game to come back, and it happened. I won.
Crazy times. Like how? But yeah, that's a
But
good one.
like okay, so I will admit the platforming can be a bit iffy, but that's the case for like 85% of the 90s platformers.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's just the like part of the shit that comes with it.
Yeah, we was
But
figuring
as
out Super
far as
Mario 64.
creativity and writing and humor to go with that gameplay, you'd be hard pressed to find a platformer better written and with a character that's more interesting. I mean,
Hey
they were
man,
spoofing all kinds of shit, and it was like legitimately funny.
I can appreciate that. Gex is one that I kind of didn't play enough. Like it's in that Croc uh family where like
So you
I always
disrespectful.
I was just saying for what my experience was. Like I would play demos of them and like get my hands on them at somebody's house, like probably yours. But
Yeah.
but I didn't really dig too deep into Gex. So now we finally got to one where I'm one of the people that slept. Not mad.
Everybody will
Okay.
be awake soon.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely have to try the more recent ones that come out. Damn, that kind of makes me want to delve into like a platformer. I have something similar to a platformer on my list. I almost put Klonoa on my list because I really
But
think
no,
that
it was dope.
series.
Yeah.
Yeah, but my thing about Klonoa is that I didn't even delve that deep into the series. Like, so I can't put it on there if I'm sleeping still. It's just every time I play them, I'm like, this is fucking awesome. Why is this not like a popular series? It reminds me of like a Kirby, but like cooler. I don't know. Um,
That's
but
actually a really good comparison.
yeah, I've always thought that shit. Like he looks like he's just a cool looking motherfucker. He's got Pac-Man on his hat. It's awesome. But the one I actually did put on my list is it's not quite a platformer. It's kind of like a puzzle platformer. I really, really, really feel like Loco Roco was fun as fuck. And that game should be on mobile phones everywhere. Like,
I didn't play that.
man, okay, so we got one that you slept on. Loco Roco was pretty simplistic. Like you play as the little orb looking. Like you remember what it like looked like, how the
Yeah,
game
yeah, I
was.
remember. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're like this little yellow orb looking dude. You know, he's adorable, or whatever. He's got big ass eyes and he's smiling all the time. And you can split him up into various small versions of him. And your goal is to get through the level, collect as many parts of him as possible. And like in the level, like huge, you know what I mean? Like get all the way through. There's secrets to find. secret paths to slip through and whatnot, and like your body is very malleable, so you're like slipping through tight cracks and whatnot. You basically use L and R to like roll him, like you're not necessarily controlling him, but you're like flowing through the levels,
Right.
and it kind of gives the game like I don't know if you played the recent Ray. I mean, I know I'm pretty sure you played the recent Rayman games like Origins and Legends and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you kind of know about the fluidity of those games. It kind of reminds me almost of like the mobile version where you just always moving, and like the game is like, okay, can I slip through this area and get to the secret part as I go past? Because I know I'm gonna be like flowing through some wind or rolling my guy down a hill or whatever the case may be. And it was really fun. Like those games, again, I feel like tilting around your mobile phone or like tapping each side of the screen, that shit should exist to this day. This should be Sony's mobile phone department, but I ain't in
Yeah.
marketing, so it is what it is.
So we'll go back to the demo disc thing. You brought that up. And I'm pretty sure I've brought this game up like multiple times throughout the months. Battle Arena Toshinden to me is still one of the most. Matter of fact, I'm just gonna do a whole fighting game. Like, I'm just gonna put all of it together in one big ball. Battle Arena Toshinden, very underrated 3D fighter. Power Stone, like Power Stone is a cult classic, but it should be a full blown
classic.
Like everybody fuck with it classic.
Yeah, 100%.
And to me, the god tier game of all underrated fighting games, Bloody Roar.
Yes, I knew what you were going to say. Yep. I was just talking to somebody about Bloody Roar and how.
Why is that not like? Why does that not still exist over here? Because they were still making it like in Japan for like a little bit longer than it lasted over on this side.
Really, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, I think there were like two. I think they got 2 more games after it stopped over here.
Interesting.
But
I mean, that happened.
That hook was fire as fuck.
It will sell to this day.
Bruh, it would do 1 million copies if it dropped right now.
Yeah. And you know what? The biggest example of that, the reason I say that so confidently is because look at how Killer Instinct took off. Like, I didn't even know how Killer Instinct took off because it was so quiet. And then I found out that if you deny Killer Instinct success, they will come out the woodwork like Nicki Minaj fans on your ass.
Bro, that's exactly how it looked. That's exactly how it looked. You got to put asterisks in the name if you're gonna talk bad about it.
100%. And I'm like, yo, hey, I'm glad that y'all love this. That's awesome in a lot of ways. Don't be toxic, but that's awesome in a lot of ways.
Yeah, don't be assholes. Like,
please. but at the same, with that being said, like this game that honestly was a cult hit, like you were saying, like everybody wasn't playing Killer Instinct back in the day, from my perspective. You know what I mean? But the people
when you say back in the day, you talking about when they did the remake on the Xbox One, or you talking about back in the day like SNES?
Like OG Killer Instinct. I know it was popular.
No.
It was popular. It was popular, but it wasn't
Killer Instinct. No, but not. It wasn't much. That was, but Killer Instinct was popping back then.
Okay, but
it was popping.
Okay, I'll say this: not everybody was putting that on these lists. You know what I mean? Like Killer Instinct wasn't.
No, that wasn't.
Yeah. No. So like that was still like a shot in the dark that just took off. You know what I mean? Like, and Bloody Roar is a shot in the light. It's like bright as fuck out here. Take the shot. Take the damn shot, please.
Play Fighter was funny as fuck to me too.
Man, that was
the mechanics were a mess. The mechanics were a mess. But it was so unique as a concept that I feel like if somebody really like some indie studio should take that on.
Yeah,
and try to give us that, because the Snowman character is like their Sweet Tooth, and I feel like he would have been a great fucking gaming mascot had that game actually been like good.
Yeah, right. The idea is there, but
yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back up to the top of my list because Loco Roco was not like my next game up. It was my weird choice. I'm not gonna lie, but the next game I have written down, I talked about it often, probably on the show, but I'm not sure. Sleeping Dogs.
Yes.
Like, why are there not like 5 of these, bro? Like, it's crazy. You had a GTA like that wasn't really a GTA like. It was kind of like somewhere in between GTA and Yakuza, really, because GTA Yakuza, and I don't even know what else to put in there. Maybe like that Jelly game, Stranglehold. Like it's somewhere in between all of those
It's
fucking games.
it's a really good mashup of GTA, Yakuza, and Shinmu.
Yeah, Shenmue was what came to mind at first, but I'm like Shenmue was so quick timey. Like this game is so gameplay based. Like you learning combos. This is something
Yeah,
I've
that's the
always wanted.
melee combat was so fire, but I think story wise, it kind of fits the Shinmu
Oh yeah,
mold.
yeah,
So
that
I think
definitely
that's where you
does,
get that from.
and
But yeah,
that
man,
definitely
that
can.
game was fucking incredible.
Dude, like to this day, like the definitive edition, it feels like a game that came out after it came out, just because it was so good. Like it was just a really well made,
Wasn't that Square
fun
Enix?
game. Yeah, it was like, and it was like it was originally True Crime Hong Kong, and they like rebooted it
Oh,
into Sleeping Dogs.
Square Enix, what y'all doing, man?
Man, like
Give us
yeah,
another one.
and honestly, they're this is not the time for that because Square Enix has definitively made the statement, hey, we're going back to what we do, like the Final Fantasies and the anime inspired Japanese
Hey,
games.
look,
They
man,
got rid of everybody else.
I I ain't trying to hear that we going back to what we do shit. Because let me tell you something. Steve Kerr keep going back to these same rotations, and the motherfucking Warriors is 6-6. They probably 6-7 as of this recording. They probably lost to the fucking Thunder while we was doing
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
I ain't
Final
trying to hear that.
Fantasy
Try something new.
Final
You seen
Fantasy
the shit that work.
16 did not hit sales projections, so I can't argue
You
with
seen the
you.
shit that work. Do the shit that work.
But I mean,
Stop
listen,
sitting step with 4 minutes left in the quarter when he
the,
got 20 points.
the problem
That
with
type of
Square
shit.
Enix, I feel like I feel that sports has been weird, but the problem with Square Enix right now is they kind of just like offloaded everyone. Now, shout out to them because they did some really good things there, like getting rid of the. I shouldn't say getting rid of amicably parting ways with the Hitman developer, but letting them keep Hitman. You know, things like that. Like that's some shit you do not see. Like they got to keep their
Yeah, no,
IP
because most of the time they be like, no, we holding on to that shit. You can
all
go,
of the time.
but we
Like
holding on to that shit.
every other time. I'm talking about that's crazy to me. Like but they really like on some good faith. You created this thing, like So shout out to Square Enix, but they are kind of pushing that Hitman, Tomb Raider side of their business to other companies. So I don't even know who. I say all that to say I don't know who has the rights to Sleeping Dogs,
I think whack ass Embracer got a hold of a lot of that
which
shit.
it makes sense. And I mean, if there's a time where if this company was still THQ something, Sleeping Dogs would have fit right the fuck in, and it would have been coming
Dog,
out like
THQ, yeah, we'd have
yeah,
had three by now.
yep, 100%, and they would have probably
Yeah,
been straight.
THQ would have dropped that shit.
And they could have been the games that sent THQ to a different plateau if they kept
Yep.
that quality up. Like that could have been a series, you know what I mean?
Speaking of basically dead developers, man, shout out
Mm-hmm.
to Midway.
Man, yes. Name you don't even hear anymore. Like you just don't talk
Dog,
about it. That's,
NFL Blitz, like that.
yeah, that was such a like the logo is iconic. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, man.
yeah. Shout out to Midway. Absolutely. All right,
I think that's
so
all I got, man. That's all I got on my list.
yeah,
Listen,
we definitely kind of winded down. There's like one or two I want to touch on a little bit. I want to just throw Valkyria Chronicles out there just because I've talked about it before, but that's the shooter strategy game.
yeah.
Actually, I think talked about it like an episode or two ago, so I won't go too deep into it. But it's I explained it before. You started off with a certain squad of soldiers. It's themed after like 1880, the 1880s war or whatever. You take one of your squad and you get a certain amount of movement, like a bar that lets you free roam. You're running around as if it's a shooter. The people are shooting at you, you can't shoot back. Then you go into action mode and you actually like do some strategy type combat, like where you aim at a specific person, you got a certain amount of shots. Really in-depth game, a lot of characters. Fantastic series. Like there's a fourth one. So, it's definitely worth it. And you don't have to play them all. Like 1 and 4 directly tied to each other. 2 and 3 were on PSP. Like, so it's one of those series where you can jump in on like the original game and almost be caught up. So high key recommend that game. The last one I want to mention is like a personal note, and it's just a game that I wish had been popular on like PlayStation. That's Intelligence Cube. Have you heard of it? Okay,
Yes.
are you hip? Okay, my God. I feel like I keep talking about it like nobody knows it, and then it shocks me because everybody knows it. But so that's a game along with Symphony of the Night that I associate with my dad, who rest in peace, my father. But he used to play that game like every day. Like he would constantly just be like running through those levels. It's a puzzle game, and I've tried to describe this game before, and I failed really bad. So let me see if I can do this now. Because it's, to be clear, this is barely it's a game 100%, but the developer is like, this is an art project. Like, this is like a project by someone, like a thought experience. It's really fucking weird.
Thought experiment is a wild way to describe a video game,
Like,
but that's accurate.
That's what it is. Like, this is crazy. And you can play it on PS5. It's on the PlayStation Plus collection or whatever. So you are a guy. You are on top of a like rectangle that's like made up of smaller cubes, right? So you have a bunch of sheets of rectangles. They're like in sheets, and they are lined up till you get this huge fucking rectangle that you're standing on. On top of this thing, they start kind of like coming up at the very end, and they start like folding towards you. Like the squares start coming at you. Your job is to make them basically disappear. You run up and you put down like a blue marker, and each blue marker can take down one of the cubes. Say there's like, 4 cubes in a row, and there's 3 rows. So you got to take down all 12 of these cubes, which are little blue markers. That's the puzzle of it. Like, they're coming at you, you're taking them down before they crush you or go across the other side of the rectangle that you're standing on. Every time you do a perfect one, you get like another like sheet of them onto the platform. So you get a little bit more breathing room, like you can run around. And there's different like elements, like there's cubes that take out other cubes and cubes you can't take out or you'll get penalized. If you start messing up, they take off parts of the platform that you're standing on, and you lose if you fall. Like you'll die or get crushed or just like fall off. And you have to play it or see it to really understand what the fuck I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, no, you can't describe, like you said you did a bad job. There's no way to properly describe this game where you're going to understand the gameplay loop without having looked at it.
I took on the challenge, so I really want to know if that like was effective for anyone, because that was something.
Like it made sense to me because I played it.
Right.
And even then, I was sitting there like, this is about the best you can get out of this, y'all.
Yeah, there's some boxes, and you're trying to take the boxes out with some boxes, But it's a really fun game. It's really, really unique. There is no fucking reason that the music had to go that crazy. Like, I want y'all to go find a song from this joint and turn it on and close your eyes, and you'll see Star Wars. That's what the fuck this music sounds like. Like, it's crazy. I don't know why. This game was like really unique, like art experiment. And I have really fond memories of it, mostly because of the association with my dad. But yeah, that's the last one that I just wanted to throw out there. That's a personal one. So I guess that kind of wraps up our list, man. There's so many more that we can delve into, and I want to tackle this topic in like from different angles. Definitely want to come back to the Game Awards shit too. In fact, I'm gonna propose something live on the air right now. I want to do an episode where we go back like year by year to various Game of the Years and kind of debate whether they deserved it, what else could have won it that year. Like, it's a lot of shit that's changed in retrospect. So I think
let's just run that next week.
Yeah, I think we want,
given that nobody goes nuts this week with a bunch of news like what happened last week, because this episode was supposed to be last week's episode.
Yeah. So barring anything crazy happening, which things are crazy already, like we got other shit we could have talked about today, but we'll try to get that in there soon. Maybe close to the Game Awards, maybe next week. We'll see what happens, but until then, man, let us know what games you think are completely slept on, like what you love that people don't really talk about. Leave some comments below, man. Definitely want to hear from you guys. Make sure you like and subscribe so we know that you're loving our content. And you can also follow us on Twitter at Eclipse Theory and on Instagram, eclipse.theory, man. So keep that feedback coming in. We want to hear from you guys. We always want to make this a show for you. But until next time,
in about 2.5, maybe 3 weeks, we probably got a big episode coming. Still working some things out, still trying to figure some stuff out, but I think we got something. I think we got something pretty cool coming up.
Yeah, I definitely want to stay tuned, man. We're working out some kinks, but we'll get it done. This is coming soon, so make sure y'all stay tuned, man. Subscribe to the channel. We got episodes coming every single week. But until next week, I am Kendall. That's Tony, and keep